Okay, hi. So it's Carrie Johnson, and I am recording today on the traditional territory of Champagne-Aniak First Nations. And my guest today is Tarek Bos-Jabbar from ColdAcre. And Tarek, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Just acknowledge that I'm on the traditional territory of the Tonquitchan Council and the Kwantlen First Nation.
Awesome.
And yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about who you are as an entrepreneur.
So my name is Tarek, and I'm the COO, the Chief Operating Officer for ColdAcre Food Systems. And what we're doing is currently we're working on anything that's indoor year-round growing. Like to transition just to year-round growing actually is probably a better way to put it. And so we try to stay kind of agnostic on how to do it or what the tech is. We're just really focused on how to produce food, especially in Canada, especially in northern Canada, all year round, remotely or in more connected areas, so that we can get more local food, being produced.
What's your educational background?
I have a degree in physics with a minor in math, and
Okay,
went out to St. FX for that.
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what are you learning about the business model of ColdAcre over the last couple of months as the pandemic has kind of become a reality?
So I think what we've been realizing is that I guess the industry that we're in is very robust. We're lucky in terms that like everybody is obviously still needs to eat, and so I think what we're learning, and it's not like we're learning this for the first time. It's just being reinforced is how important what we're doing is. This is what drew me in anyway, or how much I think it's important. And this is what drew me into it to begin with. And so with the pandemic and with a lot of uncertainty in the world, we noticed a lot of people started to look really for local food, being produced, and so it felt good that we were actually on that side, producing and yeah. So I think what I really learned about this is just that yeah, it's a robust industry. It's important, and people actually really care about it and are pretty passionate about it.
What's your engagement with Yukoners been like? Like how are you getting your message out?
Yeah, so well, we find Facebook to be particularly effective. Like I know a lot of people say that there's all sorts of places you're supposed to go, but down south and different ways to engage. But it seems like Facebook is is pretty good for us. So we've been doing that, and I'd say the Yukoners have been pretty awesome for us so far. They've been very supportive. They're very honest, and that's like a double-sided, but it's actually great. I love it. And so we know when we make a mistake, and they're forgiving and they're happy to explain what the mistake was. And so it's actually really nice. We're staying engaged, and it's nice to have people that are that engaged as well to give us their feedback, and so it's been pretty awesome, I think, overall the experience, and feels really good actually. There's a lot of Yukoners who support us. Almost it just seems just out of like supporting something local, and they like what we're doing, they like what we're shooting for. It seems almost like it's secondary that they get their greens. They're like, yeah, this is cool, but they're more focused on what we're doing as a business, which I think is really nice.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So you spoke a little bit about, sort of honesty in your own leadership as an entrepreneur. What else are you sort of learning about leadership during the pandemic within your organization or within the territory?
Well, within the territory is a harder question to ask. Maybe I'll answer within our organization. Give me time to think.
Sure.
But yeah, I'd say within our organization, it's a lot of making sure to stay positive, is one that I find really important, and focus on goals, just getting through kind of like it can get overwhelming if you look at like the large picture. It's like there's a lot to do, there's a lot that can go wrong, and it's easy to focus on all the bad or the challenges that are happening, and feel like you're drowning or like there's no way out of this. But if you just kind of stepwise, it's like, okay, how can we move this forward, and how can we turn our biggest challenge into our biggest opportunity? And that's what we've been doing over and over, is just every time that there's it seems like a huge challenge, or how are we going to produce, like how are we going to harvest food and send it out, it's like, well, we can't not harvest food. People are going to need to eat. That's not shutting down. So, how are we going to make sure that we can do this safely, that we can do this where we know we're doing our absolute best to ensure that nobody's going to get sick and that we're not the hub for a coronavirus outbreak in the Yukon. And so it can get nerve-wracking, but if you focus on what you can do and doing that really well, I find that makes that's a good place to start. And as for leadership in the Yukon, I don't, yeah, that's a tough one. I'd say that I don't know if it's what you mean, but I'd say that I'm actually pretty impressed with governmental leadership and how much they're willing to do to make sure that people are safe. And I think it's just everybody's in a challenge, and I'm sure we'll look back in a couple of years and everybody will have a better opinion on what could have been done. But I honestly think that when I look at it, everybody's trying their best and they're making rational decisions that seem like the best ones that they can do at the time. And so I don't think I could do any better in the position. So I think that they're doing the same thing just on a much larger scale.
I think that's some really insightful stuff that you said about what it is to create a safe work environment for your staff so that they feel, safe and secure to come to work, and so that you're also not like the hub of the pandemic, right? Like that's the last thing anybody wants as an entrepreneur. And so
that's pretty much the worst.
yeah. So like to really be, thinking about that and maintaining, that safe work environment and acknowledging that like none of us have ever done this before. And we're all really just doing the best that we can with the information and the tools that we've got.
Yeah.
But when we focus sort of first on, like the internal structure of what we're doing, that's our foundation for strength.
Yeah, I agree.
So how are you thinking about your business differently? Like with all that you've learned over the past couple of months, where are you guys kind of headed, and what are the core thoughts or values that you're bringing forward with you?
I'm not sure actually. I think I don't know if we're thinking about our business that differently. I think, like I said earlier, it just really got brought up how important it is to people that are not even invested in the business. So I think how I'm thinking about it, it's just maybe resurfacing and making more clear to me just how much I want this to work out, and how much I think for a community to be able to produce their own food, even if it's not the main, like not all of it, right? You don't have to take out 100% of the food, just taking off chunks at a time, I think, and it's so important. And like a lot of people get hung up on food security. We try to stay a little bit away from the word food security as a company. We try to go more food diversity, because a lot of what we do is produce leafy greens and basically fruity and vegetable, like things that aren't necessarily going to keep you alive, right? Like we're not producing rice in a crop box. We're not producing, so I think what we're doing is, by trying to diversify what a community can find is accessible and have, highly nutritious, delicious food, that's, good quality and stuff like that. It's just one step forward. And I think it's an important step. And then I think empowering a community, or empowering, myself even, to start doing that, you start seeing the other side. It's like, how can I start growing potatoes? How can I grow enough potatoes this summer so that I don't have to buy any potatoes for the winter? It starts just getting that movement forward. And so this has just been getting like really slapped into my face. It's how much people are wary, or how wary people are, and how with going outside, with going out of the territory, and how much people are staying inside right now, or like within the territory, and then as a byproduct, just how important it is now to be able to actually sustain ourselves within said territory and be a little less reliant.
I feel like, reading back through the history of the Yukon, this idea of being able to produce our own food and be, to grow everything local is like, that's like the long-standing dream to kind of get back to that, right? Like that's the history of this place, is that it always supported the people who lived here. And then we had this massive disruption. And we were like, we all kind of really want to go back to that.
Yeah. it's kind of humbling actually sometimes. It's like now we have all this tech and we have all this, you know, people like in government who are really supportive and, you know, a lot of support to do this. And I'm like, people did this for thousands of years, for tens. It's like I should be able to figure this out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of ensuring that we know what our values are in terms of that food production, right? Like it's that moving forward with our values is what will hopefully get us there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it really does seem like everybody's on the same page. I haven't met one person who is like, you're wasting your time. Nobody wants you to do this. Right. So, so everybody seems to be on the same page.
Yeah. I think there was like a humbling figure for me that came out when like from the Agricultural Association or with this, like when we learned about like Yukon's new agricultural strategy, and it's something like 1%. Is
Yeah.
that the correct number? 1%
That
of our
is, yeah.
food is produced locally?
Yeah. It's crazy. And that actually it's kind of exciting at the same time because we're in a position where nobody's really competing with each other here. We're all competing with somebody down south. That's how I viewed it the whole time, and I think most people are on the same page, and it makes it feel a lot friendlier because if you have a question, and if anybody else has a question, like we give them answers, we give them probably more than we should because, you know, if they start up and start producing lettuce, like cool, we've got so far to go. Like, you know, there's 99% for the taking. So, you know, that's okay. And it's nice. It almost creates a community of people who maybe in a harsher environment would be competitors.
Yeah, that takes me back to my story with Sunny from one of the earlier episodes of the podcast when I was first speaking with him. And it's like, you know, I was working up as a camp cook, which is where we first met, not at this
Yeah.
camp, but like our first time to meet each other was at a fire camp, right? So, but I was cooking up at 60 Mile and you know, realizing that the lettuce, like the leafy greens that we were eating, were coming from the Salinas Valley in California. And that's just like bananas that,
Yeah.
you know, from California all the way up to literally the top of the world highway.
Yeah. It's just like, it's when you stop and think about it, it doesn't make any sense. You're like, how, like almost it's incredible in some, like in a lot of ways. There's a lot of, you know, I'm floored by it. I look like $4 for a pound of strawberries in the Yukon. I'm like, how is this doesn't, you know, like obviously there's somebody being subsidized, like somebody's paying for me to eat these strawberries because, yeah, but
Yeah,
it's pretty wild when you look at it.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you learning? What's like in the last couple months, like have you expanded your skill sets in some ways? Have you taken a course? What sort of, as entrepreneurs, we're constantly sort of trying to learn the new thing. So what has piqued your interest?
Yeah, so I started to really dive into oyster mushrooms, and we started to research all things oyster mushrooms and then build. And we're actually working with Sunny Gray on them, who you mentioned before. And so that's actually been sucking up a lot of my time. I come home and I kind of like lay in bed and I'll be like, oh, how does somebody do that? And I'll like Google it or something like that. It's like, how do we figure out this, you know, like a molding issue, or how do we mass produce, you know, this many? And so I'm just constantly, you know, researching things, coming up with ideas, designs, and then building things to try to, you know, produce these mushrooms. And so that's been a fun way to spend time, and it's also a productive way to spend time because as we nail them down and we're starting to get them, we're getting our mushrooms to grow, and as they get more and more successful, then, you know, hopefully you'll find them in the stores and stuff. So it's been kind of a nice double whammy. It keeps me occupied, and it's productive.
Oh, my heart is just singing. I'm super excited that you're doing mushrooms. That's fantastic. That's like, that's the dream. I'm a big fan of mycelium running and the work of Paul Stammen. So it's like, it's
Oh, cool.
cool to hear that you guys are working on that. It's like, somebody's got to figure this out for the territory. Cause like, we're already known for mushrooms. So, but wild ones, but
Yeah.
what would it be like for us to cultivate and be able to sort of like, have a sense of production that way? Cool.
Well, it's really fun, but it's a lot of hard lessons.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it seems to be like you can collect every piece of information online, but you're gonna get slapped a few times no matter what. Yeah.
Mushrooms are they're a mystery, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
they've got their own ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool.
that's that. Yeah.
Okay, so what advice would you have for aspiring entrepreneurs out there? Somebody who's thinking like, oh, I should start my business, or even something that you're learning that you'd like to share with other entrepreneurs.
I'd say sort of the classic one of, take it one step at a time. And sounds like a cliche, but I guess it's a cliche for a reason. It's just stepwise build up, see what works, and just stay really nimble and pivot. But I'd say specifically in the Yukon, for the Yukoners that are watching, which I assume are many, is that there's a lot of awesome entrepreneurs in town. There's a lot of awesome resources. I know before this we were talking about E&I. They're an amazing resource, and so there's so much help and support out there, and they should go get it. Don't be shy, and don't think that you have to do it on your own. I think I can get into that thought process sometimes where it's like, okay, how can I figure this out? I just get into it and build a silo or something, and they're doing such amazing work, especially at E&I. But there's people doing amazing work all across the Yukon just privately, and I'm blown away by how receptive people are to taking a phone call, to answering advice, to just chatting. And so I'd say that that's the biggest one. If you have an idea, don't be shy, don't hold on to it. Don't be like, this is my idea, I can't let anybody know. Get that out there, and talk to some people, and they'll point you, at very least they'll point you in the direction of like 20 people that can help you, and you'll be kickstarted so fast and have so much to do, and so much clarity on where you should go. It's actually amazing what we've got going on in the Yukon. I think it's really special.
Oh yeah, definitely. And for those who aren't sure, that you're just talking about entrepreneurship and innovation at Yukon University.
Yeah,
Yeah, you and
yeah,
I,
sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, short forms. But that's certainly something that's come up a lot in this podcast, is the importance of relationship and collaboration. And when you're stuck, like, pick up the phone and call somebody, because there's probably somebody who's just itching to talk about that same problem as well, or help you like make your way through that problem and find your solution.
Absolutely. And I still learned that. I mean, even with the mushrooms, it was like, why did I grow 12 pounds of mold? But I'm really excited that I have 12 pounds of it, but it's the wrong stuff. And then I finally just like, okay, I'm going to call somebody. It just pushes me forward right away. And it helps, it helps all of us. And the people that are usually giving the advice are actually really excited to see somebody move forward, and see somebody interested. The other day, I got the other one that I got into. We were talking about skills, is drafting,
Okay.
and I bought like a little drafting table, like a cheap one. And the guy who was selling it to me, he looked like he was maybe in his like 60s or something like that. And he's kind of like looking at me like, "Do you not know about computers? Like, nobody drafts by hand anymore. Like, why are you doing this by hand?" It was definitely giving me like but then he was like, you could see a little sparkle kind of pop up, and it was like, okay, I can kind of help this guy draft. He gave me a bunch of stuff for free, and he was just really excited. And I got in touch with an architect in town, and he was just so excited that somebody wanted to learn how to draft by hand. They're like, "Oh yeah, we'll give you, come on, yeah, come by. We can do like drink a couple of beers. We can put some some work down, and teach some concepts and stuff." So yeah, I'm impressed overall, just how willing people are to help, and how excited they are to help in something that they're passionate in as well.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I mean, drafting, maybe kind of putting pen to paper has been a bit of a wellness practice for you, a place to sort of reboot and find some creativity. But what else is sort of inspiring you to be like a well person through this pretty stressful time?
Um, I think that where we are, we're very lucky because we have so much access to the outdoors, and so that's for me the main thing. I'll go mountain biking, or I'll go rock climbing, or ski touring or something. I mean, and I went ski touring, and then they told us that we shouldn't go ski touring, and I like right away I was like, kind of do that, but so I stopped going ski touring. But and so like that for me is the main one, is just making sure I get out. And I have a little husky, and he needs a ton of running, so that makes it easy too. It's like he inspires me to go outside, and that keeps me feeling, saying that keeps me feeling pretty fresh, I guess.
Good.
Yeah.
Any major sort of aha moments for you, something that's clicked, like where your worldview has changed a little bit, or just like a major sort of takeaway from this whole event?
Yeah, I'd say how quick everything can change, right? Like that things have been it's like relatively the same for so long as a society, and it really didn't take long for the whole world to just get completely shifted upside down. And so I think that kind of brought me back into a spot of, like renewed the importance of what we're doing, and renewed my interest in it a little bit, because as much as we like to think we know what's going to happen, we don't. And I think I was just like surprised, and it was interesting to see. But really, like personally, things can change really fast. I known that, but on a society level, I felt like it was changing every, and one week felt like way different from the next. And so I think just being prepared for the eventuality that maybe we will have to be self-sustainable, and we will have to, or we might lose a road down south. It just made it seem like that is something that could happen, um, and that is that it would happen fast.
Hmm. And so then thinking about that, what are sort of your values as we sort of enter, this new normal, this reopening phase after a bit of a restart or reset in our economic systems? What are your values or hopes for the Yukon economy?
Well, I can't speak to the whole economy. I don't know enough, I guess, about mining and tourism and stuff. So, but I can speak to what we're doing, and I would say that in agriculture, my value right now is definitely just getting more of it in the Yukon. And there's a lot of ways to do it. No one way is right. We're doing hydroponics and, indoors, and that's not the catch-all. That's not the perfect way. I don't think we're any better or worse than somebody who's doing traditional agriculture, or there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. And I think it's just really important that there's a lot of people doing it, and that we're supporting our community, and that we're buying local. And I think that on top of sustainability, or like self-sustainability, it's important for global sustainability to be buying local. And so I'd say for the economy, they've been awesome at really focusing on agriculture, and I hope to see that continue, because I think it has a lot of positive benefits. And from what I understand, it's one of the best industries for keeping the dollar within the Yukon as well. So it seems like one of the best ones to actually invest in, because as we keep investing into it, it's not, the money isn't getting shipped down south. We're actually, it's being, local farmers get it, and then they spend it locally on supplies, and and the dollar's value stays a lot more within the community. And I think that that's really important to look at as well. And so, I'd say that from that perspective, that would be the value shift. And then just as a company, our values have always been that we produce, but we also build systems and sell systems, whether it's just residentially to people who are interested in doing it at home year round, or whether it's to larger, research stations like Kluane Lake Research Station recently bought a system from us. And so I think focusing on how to help people grow where they're at, that's another part, is just, we're interested in getting people growing, and whatever scale that is, that as a company, that's also, that value's really been brought up.
That's fantastic. Okay, so the last question: any songs or podcasts, music, books, movies that are kind of getting you through?
I got into the book Homo Deus, Homo Sapiens and Homo Deus. I don't know if you said, look like you recognize.
Oh yeah, I've read them.
Yeah. So really enjoying those. That's been a very good book. I got into a cool sci-fi book that one of my friends passed on to me that was actually written by a Chinese author, and and I thought that was cool. It's just a different perspective. Being, you don't really often read a Chinese centric novel, so that was cool. And then the Play Guitar podcast, which is like, I don't know how they got that name. Good for them. They got they really won with that. But that's been a really cool podcast for me because I like to play guitar, and I found that yeah, opened up some new parts for me. So I've been, between those books and that podcast, I've been staying pretty busy.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts or closing words before we end out today?
Um, no, I think I'm pretty thankful, I guess, about where we are. I've said it a few times, but I think that there's my heart goes out to everybody who's down south. There's a lot more uncertainty, and I think it sounds like it's a lot more difficult. Living maybe downtown Toronto or downtown Vancouver, it's a lot harder to get these escapes, and you really have to focus on the wellness practice. So my heart would go out to everybody who's down there going through that. And then I'm just so appreciative of where we are because we're a little bit of an island. We got to kind of close our borders and remain a little bit shut off from the world. And as a byproduct, we still get to do the things we love outdoors, and we haven't really been clamped down as hard. It's just been an overarching theme that any moment could change again. So I'd say, overall, I'm just really appreciative of this place that we call home.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time today. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie.